All right, welcome to Big Book Compendium. Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. This is actually going to be our last official Big Book meeting of this round. We're not going anywhere. Next couple of weeks, we're going to meet, and I'm going to have topics and stuff so everyone can I want to hear other people other than me. And then a few weeks out, we'll start over from the beginning of the book with history. So last week, we did kind of something interesting. Is I took a picture of a Christmas tree and I decorated it with decorations. The decorations were decorated by what we hear at meetings. We did, with some slogans: one day at a time, always recovering, choosing not to drink today. If you don't drink, you're going to get drunk, and so forth. Fake it till you make it. We had the don'ts, don't take your first drink, don't drink between meetings. And, the very, popular, but those sayings, and, it's made me believe it's recovery. We also had some decorations that went towards commitments and coffee maker and birthday person, secretary, literature, treasurer. There's nothing wrong with that stuff. It's just, we can get really caught up away from what the program is. Same thing with, being the birthday person, the chip person, the picnic and dances and camphouse. It's all great stuff. The 90 meetings, 90 days, your favorite speakers, the guy that's got 30 years of recovery, and so forth. My allergies are getting me today, sorry. But you call your sponsor every day, that type of stuff. And what we mentioned was the significance about a Christmas tree is we make it look beautiful in our home. We make it look gorgeous, actually. People walk in and go, your Christmas tree is gorgeous. But the significant thing about the Christmas tree, it's already dead when you brought it in, especially if you have a fake one. But it was dead when you brought it in. And it doesn't really look, super great on January 3rd with a few tinsels blowing in the wind. The point is to show what the program is not. And to show what the program is, we went through some facts and some promises. I'm just going to review those really quick, but I'm not going to read them all. But we showed some facts on powerlessness on step 1, and we showed some facts on power in step 2. We took, the facts that we're powerless and the need for power, and that pushes to a decision. And we went over the promises on 63. Send some facts too as well. But then we got into the action part. We took our decision and added the secret ingredient of action, and that produced truth, right? And we went through some promises on truth. And we took that truth and added more action, which was step 5, and that produced something called consciousness. And we went over some promises on that in 75. But we took all those facts, the truth, the consciousness, and we surrendered in 6 and 7, and we had a couple of promises on that. But then we take that surrender and we add action. Step 8 and 9, we have an awakening, and we went over the promises on that. That's the ones you hear at the meetings. So we take the truth in step 4, the consciousness in 5, and the surrender in 6 and 7, and the awakening 8 and 9, and we live them in action, leading to spiritual growth in that step 10, and that's where we're at right now. And the first promise to that growth, or I like to call it a new way of life, is in the middle of page 84, right and smack in the middle of page 84. And it's the first promise on growth. And it says we've entered the world of the spirit. It's a very deep quote right there, saying we enter the world of the spirit. The first time I read that, I was like, what does that mean? But meaning we are now aware of our own spiritual nature. And that is knowing you are a spiritual entity. And you enter the 4th dimension of existence. I heard a very wise man tell me years ago, you can't enter the world of the spirit until you're aware you are spirit. And the thing about the world of the spirit is, if it was a doorway or a room to enter, you got to leave all your stuff outside. You can't take your current world with you. So the next promises are at the bottom of that page, bottom of that paragraph. And it says, love and tolerance of others is our code, meaning now you becoming aware of what love is. Very deep, and tolerance. That's to love people, even if you disagree with them. The next set of promises to growth are on page 84. And it says, we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. First, before we digest that, let's look back at the previous promise. Love and tolerance of others are our code. So that tells us our new life, our code is love and tolerance. And now they're saying we cease fighting anything or anyone. You see the connection there? It tells me we're free of anger and we can learn to love. Or we don't learn to love, we become that. And cease fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol, I believe that's a part of being recovered, not just the obsession being removed. If my obsession's gone, but I'm still fighting the world and the people around me, something's not right. People say I'm recovered, yet they're still fighting anything. That's not really where we want to be. Look at the next one. For this time, sanity has returned. So what they promised in step 2 has now become reality, right? Just wanting to believe it could happen in step 2. And when we're on step 2 begins on page 44, now we're on 84. 40 pages of directions and actions and all sorts of beautiful activities and awakenings and promises between them. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It says, we seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as a hot flame. We react sanely and normally. We find this just happen automatically. It's interesting, recoil from it as a hot flame, because remember in the book, it talked about that with the obsession, we lack the kind of defense it's the same kind of defense of putting our hand on a hot stove. Now they're saying, if tempted, we recoil from it as a hot flame. It's just an interesting wording right there. I've always recognized. I like how he does that. It says, remember how much this book described and hammered home to us that with alcohol, we're insane. Now we have a reaction of sane and normal. It says, we will see how our new attitude towards liquor has been giving us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. It just happens as a result of the work. It just comes. There's not a lot, as much effort as people want to put out to do this. You just do the work. Look, that is the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, nor are we avoiding temptation. A miracle it mentions in there, which is something that's unexplainable to the laws of science and nature. Maybe, you can say human intelligence. So if we're unexplainable, does that mean that we're unexplainable? I mean, if we're miracles, that mean we're unexplainable to the laws of science. Well, alcoholics, when this book was written, people were in mental institutions and written off by the laws of science that they would never be well again. So when these people start having these awakenings, do you think that people were kind of like going, what is going on here? And they still don't understand it today. Not just of scientists, but people in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous don't understand it because they're not willing to do the work. But it's not supposed to happen to us. We're kind of like anomalies. It's like, that's why we're in the care of God. It's just, something beautiful happens, and that's the miracle. I mean, right, every second someone overdoses or drinks himself to death, every second. Yet we still sit here and breathe. So why? Because God has a plan for us. Let's see what else it says. We feel though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. That's a beautiful place to be. That's you could say it's almost like being neutral with anything in life, resentments and fear. We've not sworn off. Here's the most beautiful promise in the book. We've not sworn off and said the problem has been removed. On page 64, you don't have to go there, but it promises us when the spiritual malady is overcome, we stand up mentally and physically. That's the obsession being removed and we are recovered. If this happens, I mean, this is what happens. Yet people say recovering. And I remember my grand sponsor, I asked him that one time, why do people say recovering all the time? He says, because they are. And when I had, for instance, the difference between being recovered, that's the promise of being recovered right there. The problem's been removed. Still work to be done. But I've had, several back surgeries, and I had a back surgery that was very extensive. And the recovering process lasted a few months just to get past the surgery, and then recovering to get back my, back, so to speak. I was recovered from the surgery. I didn't want to go back to that recovering state ever again. And that's kind of like why I look at this process. We're recovering from this. We become recovered, needs to have a hold of. Look what it says next. It just after he says problems been removed, he says something that's even more deep. It does not exist for us. This is not a boastous comment or braggadocious comment, I meant to say, but I've been sober 22 years by the grace of God. And for 21 years, I haven't had a thought of drinking at all. It doesn't even come to mind because it does not exist, the obsession. It says, we are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience as long as we're reacting in fit spiritual condition. And the fit spiritual condition part's mentioned a few times in this book. And when it tells us that later in the book, that it says we can go anywhere we want to go. It is the condition one is in, that we are in as a result of seeking the spirit within us and discovering the consciousness, resulting in, when we're connected to that oneness with God within, results to a new sense of purpose, a new set of directions, and a new awareness. And we stay there by always doing 4 through 9 and step 10. That's the word continue. It's so important, which always gives us, a new sense, a continuous sense of purpose, direction, goals, awareness, ideals, meaning nothing is handed to us. We work for it. But spiritual fitness, I like to compare to physical fitness. It cannot be achieved overnight or by staring in a mirror, wishing you had this perfect body. Everyone wants to be strong, but people don't want to lift weights, and everybody wants to lose weight, but no one wants to go on a wellness diet. But the reality is people want to change, and they have lives in shambles because of addictions and alcoholism. Yet less people in recovery want to make the effort to do the work to change. And that's sad. Maintaining spiritual fitness is the work of a lifetime. For instance, I've just started working out for the first time in 20 years and I hurt my arm, and not being able to work out for almost 2 weeks, I started to feel my body kind of retort back a little bit. And when I told my health, coach that, he says, well, working out is lifting weights and dieting is the work of a lifetime. And I've heard that before in recovery too, as well. We must have a daily reprieve dedicated to continuous action, continue to perfect and enlarge our spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice, daily step work. These are the promises to not just growth, they are the promises to being recovered. We no longer fight others or alcohol or drugs or whatever, and the obsession that blinded us for whole life has been removed. Now you see why it's a miracle. So 85 has a fact. Page 85. More on step 10. It is easy to let up on a spiritual program and rest on our laurels. So the laurel wreaths you see on the top of when the original Olympic Games, they put the laurel wreath on a person's head, and that signified that you are champion, but it was also the note that now you got to work harder to maintain it, right? So that's what the term laurel means. So it's easy to let up on a spiritual program, rest on our laurels. We are headed for trouble for alcohol as a foe. I want to mention also that they had a 6-step program, and Bill Wilson saw people going through 6 steps. And they thought this experience and awakenings would be everlasting. Like a lot of people feel that way. And they let up. And so he put step 10 in there because he didn't want loopholes. But look what he says, alcohol, we're not headed for trouble. Alcohol is a subtle foe. We're not cured. And here's the underlying part. Here's the most important fact. What we really have is a daily reprieve, the contingent on the maintenance and growth in our spiritual condition. And so our daily reprieve is, another term for reprieve is relief. And our daily relief or reprieve, we could say, is step 11. And that's listening and talking to God, prayer, meditation. And the maintenance of our spiritual condition is step 10. So what they're saying there is our step 11 is dependent upon us doing step 10. I mean, our relationship with others is depending on us doing step 10. So this is also, that's a warning in there. We don't want to, that paragraph, we don't want to be satisfied with some sort of victory in there. And we want to make sure we're always doing 10, 11. And, we want the 12 and 12 says 10 and 11 together creates an unshakable foundation for life. Very important. More promises to growth on page 85. It says, much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, direction from him who has all knowledge and power. If we are carefully followed directions, we have begun to sense his flow of his spirit into us. To some extent, we become God conscious and we begin to develop this vital sixth sense. So most people only live on five senses, touch, smell, sight, taste, and so forth. And now we have a sixth sense, God conscious. And God consciousness is the awareness of God. And it's the Gnostic, it's the knowing of God. And then we're living in that, what's 429 is a way of life. We receive spiritual growth and stay recovered. So we take our spiritual growth in step 10, and we're going to add more action of the daily reprieve I mentioned a minute ago of prayer meditation. And that leads to something called knowing. So the promises, the first set of promises, the knowing, we're actually going to go back a little bit to page 69. So page 69 states, in meditation, we ask God. So there's a prayer there as well. When we ask God, there's a prayer. We ask God what we should do about each specific matter. And here's the condition. Remember, there's promises or conditions, there's facts, and there's directions, right? We're looking at all these. Here's the condition. The right answers will come if we want it. So the promise is the right answers will come. The condition, if we want it. So we must want it. Let's go to page 86. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. It works if you have the proper attitude and work at it. So you see the condition in there? It works is the promise. The condition is if you have the proper attitude and work at it. How do we keep the proper attitude? Step 10, by constantly removing stuff that gets in the way of our, remove our bad attitudes and continue to work at it. Put time into it and see what happens. There's a story of, well, I'll tell it in a minute because there's something else I think we'll be coming to. It's similar to that. Page 86. And thinking about our day, so towards the middle of the page, we may face indecision. We may face fear, is what they're saying there. We may not be able to determine which course of action to take. Here we ask God for inspiration and a tune of thought or decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We're often surprised that the right answers will come. That's a promise. Here's the condition after we tried it for a while. People want to give up meditation right away. Oh, it didn't work for me. Nothing happened. It reminds me of the story of the bamboo tree. And the bamboo tree is, if you grow one in your, say you decide to grow one in your backyard and you put the seeds in the ground and you're told to water it every day for 5 years with the affirmation that in 5 years, you're going to have a bamboo tree that's going to be 80 feet tall in 6 months after the 5 years. You're like, what? But it's true. You water it for 5 years, and at 5 years, you don't think anything's happening. You're watering dirt. And all of a sudden, you see a little piece come out. In 6 months, it's 80 feet tall. Well, what's it doing for 5 years? For 5 years, that bamboo tree is developing its roots in the ground. It's creating a solid foundation so it can maintain this 80-foot tall, heavy tree. Very, very heavy. So that's the important fact right there, is with meditation, we want to work at it, because when we're working at it, we don't think we're doing anything, but then all of a sudden we start to feel it, start to grow, just like the bamboo tree. The next promises to meditation are on page 87. And it says, what used to be a hunch is a beautiful promise. What used to be a hunch for occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Those hunches when you were doing something bad, it said, don't do this today. Or, those little hunches that maybe I should, stop doing this, what I'm doing. Conscious, little taps on the shoulder. Now they're saying those can become a working part of the mind. The better part of us is becoming the bigger part of us. Being still and experienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable we are going to be inspired at all times. We may pay for this presumption, all sorts of absurd actions, ideas. Nevertheless, here's a promise. We find our thinking, well, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it. So first the obsession's gone, and then we're sane. And now we have a daily reprieve of prayer and meditation, at the same time letting stuff go in step 10. Self-will, misdirected instincts dissolve and start to fade. We're no longer run by fear. Those things are no longer the root of our troubles, like I talk about on page 62. We've removed the root and branch in 6 and 7. We're no longer trapped in this illusion of self, because the spirit and the mind have become one. And we are no longer self-centered, we're other-centered. What I'm saying is our thinking becomes one with God's thinking. That's the union with God, or oneness, as a result of having the grace. And we begin to have this effortlessness about us. There's a story of the swan, that all these people are out there, filming the swan in the water because it's so graceful going across the water. And the little boy goes, God, Grandpa, he goes, that swan is just the most beautiful creature I've ever seen, and just so smooth. And the old man, Grandpa, looks at the little girl and he goes, yeah, but under the water, it's paddling like hell to have that grace. It's working hard to have it. We turn into the image and likeness of our Creator. And it's like the acorn of the oak tree. I have the acorn somewhere. I'm not going to dig it up right now, but the acorn, I tell the story in step 2. I'm going to tell it again. The acorn looks nothing like the image and likeness of its creator, the oak tree. Nothing. It's a little tiny acorn. You look at it and you're like, it looks nothing like one. It looks nothing like it at all. Let me see if I've got it here. Oh, there it is. See that little acorn? Does that look like an oak tree? Looks nothing like. It's like Kicken's got one too. It looks nothing like the image and likeness of its creator. But what's going to happen is this little acorn is going to fall out of the tree. It's going to, if it lands on dry ground, it's going to turn itself to find moist soil. Its roots are going to, with germination, are going to go down to the soil and find the correct soil. It's going to turn to get the right sunlight. What I'm saying is, you can watch videos of these things and sped up, and you can see how they move. What I'm saying is this little acorn has all the information it needs to survive. And it grows in the image and likeness of its creator. I don't see it. This is not an acorn, it's an oak tree, because the acorn is within the oak tree. Are we any different? You know, when the acorn becomes an oak tree, do you look at it, look at it and you say, oh no, that's just an acorn. I see an oak tree. And when I see a person today, I see God, because within us is God, the image and likeness of our creator. We're no different from this little acorn, and we put the spiritual malady to rest. We truly ends this illusion that we're separated from God. We never were, because how can you be separated from what's always been within you? It's all about union with God and the oneness with God, all by doing, this 10-11 daily and connecting to our inner program, just like the acorn has, and listening to the information so we can act on it. And, none of us will ever, bring, no one can ever take you away from that. Nothing can ever take you away from having oneness with God. Only you can. That's the thing. It says in the 12 and 12, it's a spiritual axiom that the only thing that could possibly, basically spiritual axiom, when there's something wrong with another, it's really something wrong with me. The only thing that could possibly be wrong with others is my thinking. So if it's my thinking, I'm the one that blocks myself from God within. Here's more promises to this oneness with God. Page 88. And I want to mention something, it's not just the acorn that has it, you see the birds fly in uniset in the sky. They're following their program. Flowers bloom effortlessly. They don't look at the other flowers and compete with the other flowers. They just bloom. They just follow the inner program. So let's see more about this. Page 88. We're in here's what happens when we have God. We're much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, or self-pity or false decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easy, for we're not burning up foolish energy as we did when we're trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works. It really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in a simple way we just outlined. So we are now experiencing that mindfulness rather than our minds controlled by fear, worry, self-pity, or false decisions. Now we have peace, courage, calmness, joy, happiness, and sane decisions. That's why we are more productive. We're living God's will. Let's see more of these promises on page 88. It works. It really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined. So here's the key word in this. I mentioned this in 6 and 7. On 76, we let God discipline us. We got to let God. We don't talk to God and then, oh, I'm going to do it myself. No, we let God discipline us in the simple way we just outlined. By simply improving upon the power that we just received, we begin to know God. And we take all the facts from the allergy obsession from earlier, our truth, our consciousness, and 5, our surrender, and 6 and 7, our awakening, and 9, our spiritual growth, and 10, our knowing. And we selflessly live that in action, leading us to become an altruistic being. The promises of being altruistic are on page 89. So the definition of altruism is let's look at it as selfishness first. Selfishness tending mostly to my own needs, with little or no thought of others, very little, because I'm so drowned. Now you take an alcoholic into that when we're trying to feed our obsession or allergy and our obsession. And then all of a sudden we have an awakening, we become this altruistic, that's a selfless unselfishness, and that's tending to mostly the needs of others with little or no thought of our own needs. It says practical experience shows, we're on page 89. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intense work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. This is a 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they are very ill. Life will take on a new meaning to watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch their loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends like right now. This is an experience you must not miss. You will not want to miss it. Look at this, frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is a bright spot of our lives. This is our lives today. Think of the difference. As a result of 4 through 12, life has taken on a brand new meaning, new purpose, new direction, new life. We're selfless. That's the beauty of this. And if you want to live the best life you possibly can, offer your time and guidance to another person. Offer, be a step guide, be a sponsor. The next promises of being an altruistic is on page 100. These are beautiful promises. It says both you and the new man, here's a must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. It's a promise. When we look back, we realize the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have had planned. Amen. Follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new, wonderful world, no matter what your current circumstances. Now, no matter how messed up your life is, if you're with God, you're always going to find a way out, especially with these steps. So, there's nothing more rewarding than walking, side by side with someone. Sitting down with another, keeps my heart growing. And there's nothing like hearing a fifth step and witness God awaken another person to be a part of this. It's just so unbelievable. This is all connected to step 3 when we made the decision to turn ourselves over to God. And it mentions that in there, and 7 mentions God's bidding. Third step prayer says, God, I offer myself to thee, do with me as I will, relieve in the bondage of self. May bear take one of the difficulties of victory over them, may bear witness to those I'd help by thy power, thy love and thy way. That's what we're doing here. We're living in this. If we're not sponsoring, did I really mean what I said in step 3? It's a new, wonderful world because, it's amazing. It's new and wonderful because there's nothing, we haven't been here before. We didn't think it existed. The only bad day is when you're not carrying this message, and ever since I've had an awakening, all I want to do is this, take people through the steps, do book studies, help other people. The next set of promises are on page 102. Beautiful promises. It says, your job now is to be a place where we may be of maximum helpfulness to others. Remember, it's page 52 says that we're working for God, pretty much. He is the principal, we are the agent. So our job now is to be a place where maximum helpfulness to others. So never hesitate to go anywhere you can be helpful. And it's anywhere. It's not just AA. It could be the church, it could be anywhere. It could be feeding the homeless, whatever. It could be your family at home. You should not hesitate to visit the most sordid spot on earth in such an errand. Keep on the firing line of life. I love that. Firing line of life. With these motives, and God will keep you unharmed. If we keep working with God, God will keep us unharmed. God first, others second, and my needs get met. That's a powerful aspect. The same thing it says on page 63. He will provide if we keep close to him in 10 and 11 and perform his work well in step 12. That's the beauty of what we're doing. The next set of promises are on page 124 for helping others, altruistic. It's kind of like the last half of the bottom paragraph. It says, showing others who suffer how we were given help is the very thing which makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert misery and death for them. Wow. Cling to the thought that in God's hands. your dark past. I mean, page 66 says it calls step 4 the key to the future. Step 4 is not only the key to my future, but it's the key to life and happiness for others. Who thought when we did our 4th step, our 5th step with our sponsor, that it's preparing me to save lives? Me doing that's going to save not just one life. You know, when we do step 4, it's our duty to bring it to others in. You can change life. You can avert misery and death for people. The greatest gift you can offer a person is step 4. The next set of promises are on page 153. It says you are going to, and maybe it starts on 152. I don't remember. I don't have it marked. Sorry. It says you are going to meet these new friends in your community. Near you, alcoholics are dying helplessly like people in a sinking ship. Yes, they are. If you live in a large place, there are hundreds, high and low, rich and poor. These are future fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. Among them, you will make lifelong friends. It's a promise. You will be bound to them with new and wonderful ties. Promise. You will escape disaster together. Promise. You will commence shoulder to shoulder your common journey. Promise. And here's the best promise we've read all day. It's the most beautiful promise I think I've ever heard. Then you will know what it means to give of yourself that others may survive and rediscover life. Not discover life, rediscover life. You will learn the full meaning of love thy neighbor as thyself. So through this process, 4 through 12, we shift from selfishness to love. And we awaken to the conclusion that love is all we are, by simply letting go of the old ideas of what we thought we were. You know, the steps are not about learning, they're about unlearning. And they're not about gaining anything. They're about losing stuff so I can be closer to God, letting go of stuff. And, you know, this love that we gain, it isn't something we find outside of us. We've been looking for stuff outside of us our whole life. We find it within us. And when we find it, we send it out to the rest of the world. And we bring that love, and that is a true message we bring to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, you know, we begin to live that 24/7, where love is life and life is love. And this altruistic love that we have to offer is the most powerful love in the universe, because it can heal. And we do it without any thought or effort, without any thought of anything in return. Our aim must be to be selfless, but not just to nourish our soul, but to nourish the soul of thousands of others. I'm gonna that's the promises of that step 12, but I'm gonna read you some facts, and we're gonna close with some cool promises and some other stuff. So let's look at some closing, I guess they're closing thoughts and promises, more or less. So the first one I'm going to read to you is on page 17. And this is just a cool kind of fact and promise. I say it's a fact. It tells us it's a fact. Bottom of 17. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out which we can absolutely agree upon, and which we can join in brotherly harmonious action. Beautiful. The next one after that's on page 28 is another fact. We in turn sought the same escape with all desperation of a drowning man. They're telling us to take the steps of the drowning person. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given us given to us, if you prefer, a design of living that really works. That's all promises in there. And page 58, the promise we've heard read 1,000,000 times. Rarely have we seen a person fail who steadily followed our path. All of these promises and facts, those 3 ones, close beautifully on page 164. And this tells us we have arrived and reminds us there's work to be done. It says, still you may say, around 164, still you may say, but I will not have the benefit of contact with you who wrote this book, write this book. We cannot be sure. God will determine that. So you must remember that your real reliance is always upon him. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. You crave. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we only know a little, and we do. God will constantly disclose more to you and more to us. I do not know a awakened person that does not live that reality. Miracles become normal. Everything changes. Ask him in your morning meditation we can do each day for the man who's still sick. Here's a condition. The right answers will come if your own house is in order. So you can have anything you want as long as your house is in order. If your life is not in order, it's impossible to even understand any of this we're going over. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got because of selfishness. So see to it that your relationship with him is always right. Here's some promises. And great events will come to pass for you and count others. Promise. This is a great fact for us. Promise. So this program of recovery, this is the program recovery that we covered through this promises and stuff. It's the only program that there is. The only requirement is desire to stop drinking. Means you have the right to do the steps or not do the steps. But the difference is a 2% recovery rate versus an 85+ recovery rate. If you want this, all you have to do is get a step guide and go through this book, and you have all these promises will turn into results and you have freedom. And this book, and only this book, is the reason we're in this room and are sober today. Look what it says. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God, or as you don't understand God. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults into your fellows. That's all your faults, all your false dreams, all your ideas, and look within and admit the illusion that you've been living. Let it go. Put these old resentments, your old behavior, old ideas, and that's anything that's from the past, resentment and stuff. Let it go and put it to bed. Clear away the records of your past. Give freely what you find and join us. So you move away from the abundance of self and awaken to the fact that you're provided for, with the condition you stay close to him and perform his work well. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit. Love that. You will surely meet some of us if we trudge the road to happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. It's like welcome home, you're awake. The invisible will become visible. Bill considered our steps spiritual principles. I believe that there are virtues and ethical values with each step. And I always throw this in there at the end of the book study. And if anyone wants this list, I can send it to them too. But a virtue is a quality of doing what is right, moral excellence. Ethical values and actions we get by doing what's the right thing, leads us to change and growth. So these 12 steps, I'm going to mention each step and read it. And I'm going to tell you what the actual, you can say principle or ethical value, whatever it is. So step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our life would become imaginable. Powerlessness. So alcohol, we know, is this deadly, incurable disease that we are powerless to overcome our power. We must take that literally. We're powerless over alcohol. Doesn't say we're powerless over anything else. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves restores us sanity. The principle there is hope. Step 2 is simply a mirror of step 1. That's all it is. Step 1, we're powerless. Step 2, power. No power, hopeless, helpless. I need help. And step 2 is telling us, you can, if you seek this power, you can have sanity. That's the hope. What is hope? It's the desire for fulfillment. And it's that deep confidence that something can and will happen. And where you get that from? Right inside. The road to recovery is built on hope. In step 3, made a decision to turn our will and life over to the care of God. The principle there is commitment, the principle of commitment. Nothing significant happens without commitment. It is the promise to completely dedicate and obligate yourself to something. Commitment determines your future, and you become whatever you're committed to. Step 3 is all about that, completely giving yourself to a program. Step 4, made a searching and fearless more inventory of ourselves. So that the value or principle here is uncover. Uncover means to reveal what previously has been not known or you want to keep hidden. You're bringing it to light. In step 4, we're uncovering the truth about ourselves by inventorying our resentments, harms, fear, and sex conduct. We uncover why we have them, and we begin to see the destructive nature of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being, the exact natures of our wrong. And that the principle there is discover. Discover is to become aware of something that previously had not been known, leading to new awareness. In step 5, we discover these obstacles in our path. So in 4, we uncover our wrongs. In 5, we discover our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. That is discard. That means to throw away something that is no longer useful. So we discover our defects. And 6, we let God take them away. Let them go. I can't, he can, I must let him. So the steps are not about gaining anything. Like I said, they're about losing something. Step 6 is the pinnacle step because we did every step to take step 6. 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. Surrender. The second we begin to let something go, we're surrendering. I'm giving up control. I'm giving up my life to God. It's step 3 with teeth. This is where I abandon myself to God. 8, made a list of all persons we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Became willing to make amends to them all. Willingness is the principle there. Many believe 8 is only a list. It's about being willing. There's a prayer in there. Amends scares us. We must ask God for willingness. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, unless to do so injure them or others. The principle there is repairing. Repair means to fix something back to its proper working order. If you repair a car, it runs again. If I let go of my defects, would it not make sense to repair my past? 10, continue to take personal inventory when we're wrong, properly admit it. Continue is the principle there. Spiritual growth is the essence of step 10. Continuing is to keep doing a specific course of action, 4 through 9, every day. We continue to further and further develop this spiritual, development. We're going to continue to make mistakes too. That's what we have it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only knowledge for his will for us and the power to carry that out. The principal word there is improve. Improve. It means to make something better. I want to improve my relationship with another person. How do I do that? I go spend time with them. I get to know them. That's the essence of step 11. We spend time with God. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening, there's all these steps. We try to carry this message to others, especially alcoholics, and practice these principles in all our affairs. Carry. So I'm carrying something. You take it from another place. Take it from one place to another, you're carrying it. And that's what we do with the message. We're taking it from one place to the next. That is what we started the program, 80 something years ago, 86 years ago. Bill knew that faith without works was dead. To survive, we must carry this message to other people. And that's what this is all what the 12 steps do. This is exactly what they do. They help us face and get rid of the things ourselves that are blocking us, not only to remove the obsession, but to help us discover what stands between us and God, so I can be restored to sanity. In essence, the steps, it's all about that awakening, about losing something so I can have that channel with God. And the second we start this program, we start our journey back home again, back home. Until we take the action of 4 through 12, we will stay controlled by self-will and instincts. And I will continue to shield myself from temptation and live in that alcoholic insanity, sober, which I don't want to be. What we want is our former center of this obsession and living on self-will is replaced with a simple sense of personal spirituality, dependence upon God. So that's pretty much all of it. I mean, the true change consists of our ability to look deeply into ourselves, to the deepest swelling of our beings. In some moments, we'll feel like nothing's going on. A second later, brand new reality. Some moments we'll feel like we're angry, brand new reality. A blink of an eye, you feel like you're part of life again. Radical change. That radical change is necessary if you want long-term recovery. That is the formula of the big book. And so until we take that action, we will not have the full awareness of the presence of God in our lives, giving us the ability to make those sane, rational decisions. Getting rid of the false self. The last thing I'm going to say is, one thing we must always remember is only God can wake the dead. That's what it comes down to. And we're not God. We can point the way. That's the most beautiful thing we have. I'm going to stop the recording and we'll discuss whenever.